Hello everyone. Today I want to give you the first lesson in TypeScript, and that is what are types. So first, to understand what are types, it's good that we understand what are types in JavaScript, which is like the base language for the TypeScript. So here I have like 4 variables in JavaScript. One of them, through studying these variables, you can get to know who am I. So one of them is my name, Azim. The other one is my age, is 39. The other one is like if I'm hungry right now. No, little bit actually, but let's say no, false. And the other one is my date of birth, which is actually 1985. So if I run this program, I would see the types of these variables. Now I run it on this side, and you see type of name is a string. So to get the type of any variable, you need to use this operator in JavaScript, type of. So type of name goes to the log, type of name is type of name. Type of name is a string. And this is a number. And the hungry is like a boolean. It can be true or false. And date of birth is an object. So these are like the basic types in JavaScript. But what is important here is that when you define a variable in JavaScript, JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. It means it can always change. So here I don't need this anymore. I close it. Here I say hungry is false. I'm not hungry. Then there is a lot of codes happening, blah, blah, blah. 100 lines later, someone, after a lot of codes, a colleague of mine joined the project and say, I want to assign hungry to yes. The person is hungry now, and writes hungry is yes. And as you see, that's totally fine. But this can cause a lot of problems because maybe we are calling a method. For example, maybe we have a method called function should eat, and it gets a parameter hungry, and then it says if hungry, then return eat. Okay? Otherwise, you would return it's okay. And here, you really want the hungry to be a boolean. I mean, here with this false and the string, it would still work. But you really want that you know what do you feed to this function. And a lot of languages have it, like Java and similar languages. But JavaScript historically didn't have this. And it's also fine. It was also used a lot as like a strength by many people. But you can imagine it can become really hacky. And for bigger projects, you don't really want this hackiness in your project. You want that things are very clear and in place. And as since 2010s, 2015, the size of the projects with JavaScript start to grow, and we don't just use like a small library to set some color on the page or maximum use some jQuery. It became more and more important that we have a typed language, and that's why the TypeScript became so popular. Now, let's move on and talk about type safety in TypeScript. So now this is a TypeScript file, and in TypeScript, we say let hungry is false. And then when we want to reassign hungry, we directly see that there's a problem. What's the problem? Oh, the string is not assignable to type boolean. So TypeScript knows that hungry is boolean. If I hold my mouse over hungry, it says let hungry is a boolean. So that's actually basically almost everything that TypeScript offers you, is that you would know each of your variables, which kind of type it has, and what else it offers you. You have more than these basic types like number, string, boolean, and so on. You can have thousands of user-defined types in TypeScript. So, and always when you assign a type that's not right, it would give an error. But here, if I say hungry is true, it's totally fine. How do we assign types to variables? It's very easy. Always when you define a variable, you put this double dots and then you write which kind of type it is. I'm just using right now the basic types that we also have in JavaScript, but we can have other types also, which we will be in the next videos, we will reach them. So here in this example, I have a URL, which is of a type string and the ID of type number. Also, you can always use it. And how do you assign types to functions? So here we have an update URL, which gets a URL and the ID, and it's completely the same. If you are in the parameters of the function, you just, like here, how you write with the double dots, you say URL is a string and ID is a number, and the function is returning true. But how do we type the function itself? So this is also very easy. If you are not sure and you are using like a more elaborate code editor like Visual Studio Code or WebStorm, you just hover your mouse over the function, and then you see usually the type, because TypeScript knows the type. We will come to it. So this is actually the syntax that you need to know. So here again, I say, okay, this is my function. After the parentheses, you say the double dots, and then you say you return a Boolean. And now your function is typed. Now I can call my update URL over the variables that I defined. So update URL, and ID. It's working. I think it has an error because we never assigned it. So let's assign the URL. Now, how do we assign the URL? We can just say here equals to a string, a URL, and ID equals to 1. It's a number. And now everything's fine. You see update URL. Always when you hover your mouse over everything in this editors, it tells you their type. So update URL takes URL of type string, ID of type number, and returns a Boolean. And let's imagine a colleague of mine wants to use this method, and the colleague thinks, this method should return maybe a string containing some information if it was successful or not. And then the colleague writes, let's return of type string, and then says, okay, now I want to call it. I say return is, update URL. Of course, it doesn't work because TypeScript is completely typed. You have type, this is called type safety. So it says, sorry, type Boolean is not assignable to type string. So the errors in TypeScript sometimes are not so easy to understand, but if you really from beginning really try to analyze these sentences, which is for non-native English speakers sometimes complicated, you will get into it. It's not so many of them. It's like some errors, and after you understand them, it's fine. So now here we are assigning something to something else. What are we assigning? We are assigning a Boolean to a string. Type Boolean is not assignable to type string. So very clear, you cannot do it. Maybe if we make the type Boolean, it works fine. And also, it would always check if the parameters that are used in the right way. So if you send for the ID, instead of number 1, if you just give 2, it would give you an error. Argument of the type string is not assignable to parameter of type number. So you're assigning a string to a number, and that's not okay. So everything, as you see, is typed. Sometimes you have optional parameters in the function. For example, imagine you have a say hi that says hi Azin, hi Mark, hi Lisa, and you want that you don't have to always offer name. When the name is undefined, you want to say hi to Azin, and then you call the function, say hi Azin. Of course it would work, and then you say hi Lisa, and it will say hi Lisa. But what happens if you just want to call say hi? This would work totally fine in JavaScript. JavaScript doesn't really care if how to mark the optional parameters in a function, but in TypeScript you have to be more specific. So here it says expected one argument but got 0. So you had to, it expected from our function definition, which is here, to have a one argument name, but we are not offering anything. So in order to match this name as a optional parameter, you just put a question mark here. And now everything's fine. Now it knows that sometimes you don't offer name, and it's totally fine. And this function doesn't have a return value. How do we type a function that does not return something? As you see here, again, you can little bit always cheat, void. So here you just write, this is a void function. And that works totally fine. Our last small lesson about TypeScript is about inferred types. So as you see in this slide, you can always say which type a variable have, but this is not a must in TypeScript, because actually most of the times TypeScript can understand, like TypeScript analyze your code and try to understand what are you, which types are the variables having, and just take it in into account. So if I check the name is a string. The TypeScript already knows about it. It already knows. It analyzes your code. It knows it's a string. So you don't really have to write a string here. You could also skip it in order to keep your code clean and more minimal. You can always skip it, except you are working like on a really huge code base. Things are complicated, and you have certain sort of standards in your team maybe. Then you would want to really type everything. But in most of the cases, you can also skip it. And this is especially when something is a constant, because the first time that you assign this to a primary type, it already knows this is OSIN, and you cannot reassign it. If it's an object, it's different, but still it would have the type of that object. So it's totally fine. And here, I have a question for you. I want that you pause the video and think about it. What about age? Would it know the type of the age or not? Because when we define age, we didn't say what is it. And then we say age is 10 somewhere later. We could do also a lot of other things here. Here we have a lot of code, and then we say age is 10. Now we check the type of age. Any. Why is it like that? That's because when it is defining age, we are not saying at all what is age. So it doesn't know, and it doesn't analyze our code so deep to find out maybe 100 lines later we assign age. So if at this line you say age is 10, age is, I don't know, 30, I'm 39, then it already knows. Age is number. Then after that, you cannot give it a string anymore. You cannot say age is 10. It wouldn't work. It gives you an error. As you see, I didn't use any typing on age, but TypeScript already knows age is made with the type number, is an inferred type of the age, so I cannot do it. But if you don't do here, it says any. And what is any? Any, in TypeScript, there is some kind of utility types that have special meanings. There is a lot of types in TypeScript, but any is like one of the most common ones, and any, it just means it can be anything. We don't know. And because when it's any, we can say age is 10 and age is also 30. Basically, when it's any, it means TypeScript does not really follow up what is the type of this variable. Doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's just any, whatever. And here we have a string again. Sex is male. Like this. So what you should understand is that always when you define a variable, if this definition is including initialization of the variable, like the first time you initialize a variable, it would take the type. And now with the functions. So as you see here, the function has two types. A is a number, B is a number. What would be the return type of the subtract? Of course, we know it's a number, but does TypeScript know about it? I can just hover my mouse. It knows it's a number. So that would mean if I say let's return as a string, and then I say return equals to subtract 2 and 3, it would be unhappy. Even though we didn't say explicitly that subtract returns a number, it says type number is not assignable to type string. In JavaScript, it would totally work. I would say, okay, I want to enforce subtract to return a string for any reason. It would not work. I can say I wanted to return a string. Then in my return statement, it would say, hey, like, what the fuck? You say it's a string, but you are returning a number, because A minus B would be a number because they are both a number. Type number is not assignable to type string. So as you see, it knows a lot about the types, and also when you do operators, it would infer the types. So if you say, let's make a simple example. Let A is high, and let B is azim, and then C is A plus B. So C would be high azim. What would be the type of C? What do you think? Think about it for 10 seconds. I'm sure you could guess right. C is a string, because the TypeScript already knows that A is a string and B is a string, and understand C should be a string. So that's it. That's the first lesson of your TypeScript. I hope you understood everything, and see you in the next video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like, to write me a comment, and to subscribe to the channel so more people can see it. Thank you. Bye-bye.